Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, let's talk a little bit about what you glued in your journal. First, you glued a multiplication chart. I don't care if you use it or not. During my class, on assignments, use it. If it helps, use it. What I don't want to see is you put things in your journal and then never open it to use it again. You glued in a place value chart. And you glued in the pictures of 1,000th. Those pictures, the big, this thing right here, you glued in this right here. If we look at it, the whole thing equals one whole. Okay? The whole thing equals one whole. So what place value is one whole in? If it's a whole, it's in what place value? Good, the ones place. Oh, for the love of Pete, people, wake up. Each column on that paper is worth 1/10. Why is it worth 1/10? Because it takes 10 of them to make one whole. So 10 of these create one of these. Yes, ma'am. You're just raising your hand to stretch?
Yes.
Okay. So this is one whole. This is 1/10 because it takes 10 of these to make this. So this is 10 times bigger than this. Or this is 1/10 of this. The squares on that you glued in, they equal 100th. Why do they equal 100th? Because it takes 100 of them to make one whole. Now, if we think of it as pennies, we think of it as money, this would be a dollar bill, this would be a dime, and this would be a penny. Now, that's as far as you got last year. You only went to the 100th place last year behind the decimal point. This year, we're just adding one more place value, and that's the 1,000th place. The 1,000th place is smaller than the 100th place because it takes 1,000 of them to make this. 1,000 of them to make this. It takes 100 of them to make this. It takes 10 of them to make this. Well, how can we know what it looks like? Well, that picture shows you in the top left square that they're dividing that hundredths into 10 equal pieces. And this is what a 1,000th would look like if we're using the base 10 blocks. This teeny little piece right here, or looking at your picture that you just glued in, they show you the little pieces that equal 1,000. So, right, just hold on to it until I'm done talking. Okay? So this is what 1,000th, that's all we're adding. It takes 10 of these thousandths to make one of these hundredths. 10 hundredths to make a tenth. 10 tenths to make one whole. That's kind of why they're called base 10 blocks. Ooh, ah. All right, now there are different ways to represent numbers. We just looked at one. We can represent numbers just by using our base 10 blocks. What are other ways we can write out numbers that you've learned in the past, but you had a summer? So good. Bradley, you can write it in standard form. Thank you, Bradley. Standard form. So let's say the number in standard form, we'd have 86 and 301 thousandths. Yes, sir. What's the other one?
Expanded form.
Expanded form. Now you will see expanded form some, but you'll see expanded notation more. Yes, ma'am.
Extended, I was gonna say expanded.
Perfect. Expanded notation. And one other way that we're going to talk about this year. Yes, ma'am. Word form. All right, so we have expanded form and expanded notation. What are the differences? Well, expanded form, if we were doing this in expanded form, we'd have 80 plus 6 plus 3/10 plus 1,000. Yes, ma'am. No, it's not times. This is when we get into times. When we do expanded notation, we would have 80 times 10 plus 6 times 1 plus, now there are two ways to do this. Eidos ways to do this. The first one, we could do 3 times 1/10. But is there another way to write 1/10, Dax? You know of any other ways to write 1/10? Good, as a fraction. So, or you may see it written 3 times 1/10. Those are the same value. Fractions and decimals and percents, they all connect. And then you might see plus 1 times 1,000. Or 1 times 1,000. Okay, so you may see it written those three ways. We also have word form. In Destiny, what we're going to have to be able to do is move between any of these. Because your teacher may give you one that says, hey, here's it in word form, and I want it in standard form. Here's an expanded form, I want it in word form. So we're going to work on doing that. We're going to work on identifying the place values. But word form, Destiny, we're going to look first in front of the decimal point. What's that number in front of the decimal point? The whole thing.
86.
I asked Destiny, are you Destiny? Good. 86. Destiny, do you remember what we say when we get to the decimal point?
20?
No, we're not saying 20.
Oh,
And 86 and. The only time you should say and when talking about a number is when you're talking about the decimal point. I'm up here. If you look up here, it'll be easier to see me. Unless you're staring deeply into his eyes and looking at the reflection of me in his eyes. So we have 86 and. Now, this is where people want to go 3/10 and 0/100 and 1,000. That's not right. Alana, read that number to me, just like it's written. 301. 301. Okay, writing them in word form is easy. Just what's in front of the decimal and what's behind the decimal. So we have and 301. Now we have to identify. The last thing we do is we find what place value is the smallest. This is the smallest place value, the thousandths, because we said this is the thousandths. So what place value is that one in? Anybody? Anybody go? Tell me. Thousandths. Tenths, hundredths, thousandths. And so when we're writing behind the decimal point, we always we always end with whatever place value the last one is. So that's some of what we're going to work on today. You've got a place value chart, or actually this week, you've got a place value chart in your journal. So some of what we're going to do is we're going to say, hey, what place value is that in? And you'll go, oh, it's 3 in front of the decimal point, so it must be the hundreds and that kind of thing. Yes, ma'am.
What are the white words?
Oh, we'll get for them later. Just chisel. Boom, shakalaka, peace out, God bless, love you, do something kind today, save the bees.